The planet was quiet, too quiet, and the kind of silence that made every sound stand out. Winds whistled across jagged cliffs and craters, carrying dust that sparkled faintly under the two pale suns. On this lonely world, no one dared to wander close to the place where the exiled beast lived. Everyone in the nearby colonies knew her story, and everyone feared her. She was enormous, bigger than any creature they had seen, with dark, rough skin marked by scars that told the story of battles no one could imagine. Her eyes were bright and sharp, the kind of eyes that seemed to see through everything, through lies, through fear, through weakness. For those who had glimpsed her from a distance, it was clear she was dangerous. But there was something else in her eyes too, something sad, almost human. The beast had not always been alone. She had once been a protector of her world, a guardian who kept peace and defended the innocent. Legend said she had saved many, fought many, and had been loved by her kind. But that had all changed. A terrible event had occurred, a disaster the elders blamed on her, whether it was true or not. One by one, the others had turned against her. Friends had abandoned her. Her family, her allies, all had shunned her. And so she had been cast out, exiled to this barren wasteland, left to survive as best she could. She had learned to move silently, to hunt quietly, and to hide from the eyes of those who still feared her. But the solitude weighed heavily on her. Even the fiercest warriors can feel loneliness, and this was her constant companion. Nights were the hardest. She would lie beneath the stars, looking up at worlds she could never return to, remembering the warmth of the sun on her back when she was free to roam among her people. On this day, she was pacing along the edge of a jagged cliff, the wind tugging at the long, tattered ridges along her back. Her body ached from old wounds, and her movements were careful, measured, because every step reminded her of the battles she had survived and those she had lost. She paused to listen, ears twitching at the faintest sound. Somewhere far below, the ground shifted, a small quake that told her that nothing in this place was truly safe. The colonies watched her from a distance, using long-range observation devices that picked up even the faintest motion. They had learned over the years that no one could approach her and survive. She was a legend and a warning all in one. Parents would tell their children stories of the great beast, warning them never to wander near her territory. Soldiers had tried once, twice, even 3 times, and each time they had barely escaped with their lives. Some had vanished entirely, leaving only the memory of their screams echoing through the canyons. Yet, despite all this, there was something quietly beautiful about her. She moved with the grace of a creature who knew every inch of her world. Even in her exile, she carried herself with dignity. Her eyes, though piercing, sometimes softened when she paused to watch the small desert creatures scurry across the sands. She remembered what it felt like to care for others, to be responsible for life beyond herself. And in the deep, hidden corners of her mind, she longed for that connection again, though she knew it might never come. As the suns began to sink toward the horizon, casting long, jagged shadows across the barren land, the beast let out a low, mournful sound. It was a sound that carried across the cliffs, a sound that was more sadness than anger. It told anyone listening that she was not just a monster to be feared. She was a being who had been wronged, who had suffered, and who had learned to survive in a world that had rejected her. But even in her isolation, the world around her was changing. She did not know it yet, but today would not be like any other day. The winds carried a scent that made her pause, something foreign, something small, something fragile. She sniffed the air, tilting her massive head toward the horizon. A human presence? That was impossible. Humans rarely ventured this far and certainly never alone. Yet the scent persisted, faint but unmistakable, riding the winds like a whisper. For the first time in years, the beast felt a flicker of curiosity mixed with caution. She had survived countless dangers, but this was different. There was no malice in the scent. It was tiny, almost laughably small compared to her own massive form. She could feel a strange pull in her chest, an old instinct from when she had been a protector of her kind. Something about the presence called to her, Not as prey, not as a threat, but as someone who might need her. She crouched low, blending into the jagged rocks, and her eyes scanned the horizon. The sun dipped lower, and a tiny figure appeared in the distance. A little human, alone, moving carefully but without the fear that most creatures showed in her presence. The beast's gaze softened, and yet a flicker of caution remained. This was dangerous. Too dangerous. But the pull in her chest grew stronger, urging her to move closer, to understand this strange visitor. For the first time in a long time, the exiled beast allowed herself a thought she had long suppressed. Maybe she did not have to be completely alone. Maybe, just maybe, there was a reason for this encounter. And so, with careful, silent steps, she began to move toward the figure on the horizon, unaware that the moment would mark the beginning of a story that neither she nor the little human would ever forget. The little human girl did not know how she had ended up on this strange, harsh planet. One moment she had been playing near her home on Earth, and the next a bright, swirling light had enveloped her. She remembered a sudden flash, a strange noise, and then everything had gone dark. When she opened her eyes, she was standing on rough, red soil, surrounded by jagged rocks under two suns that made the world look unreal. She shivered, feeling a mix of fear and wonder. The air smelled different, crisp but metallic, and strange shapes moved in the distance. She looked around, trying to understand where she was, but everything was so unfamiliar that she felt small and alone. Her heart pounded in her chest, and she wanted nothing more than to go home, but there was no way she could see. The girl began walking slowly, hoping to find something familiar or someone who could help her. She tried to stay on higher ground, thinking maybe from a hill she could see where she was. As she moved, she noticed strange tracks in the soil. They were huge, deeper and wider than anything she had ever seen. Her curiosity mixed with fear, and she followed them quietly, careful not to make noise. At the same time, far above in the observation towers of a nearby alien settlement, leaders watched the world unfold. They had seen the girl appear from the strange portal, and instead of helping her, a cruel idea formed in their minds. The exiled beast had long been a threat to their society, dangerous and untouchable. The humans or aliens who had tried to confront her before had barely survived. Now a little girl, small and fragile, stood alone near the beast's territory. The elders saw this as a perfect test, a way to assert dominance over the beast, or perhaps to rid themselves of both the girl and the monster. They knew that no one would dare approach the exiled beast. "Throw her close," one elder said coldly. "Let her see the consequences of defying us. If she survives, we may consider it a miracle. If not..." The sentence trailed off, leaving the implication clear. The girl wandered unknowingly closer to the edge of the cliffs where the beast lived. The track she had been following led her straight to the shadowed rocks that marked the beast's territory. She had never seen anything like this creature before, though she had heard stories from her parents about monsters and dangerous animals. None of those stories could have prepared her for this. The exiled beast was watching from a distance. Her massive eyes followed the tiny human as she moved. She noticed the girl was small, unarmed, and unafraid in a way that confused her. Most creatures trembled at the first sight of her, but this human did not. There was something in the girl's presence that sparked curiosity. She crouched low, muscles tense, ready to protect herself if needed. But she did not move closer yet. The alien elders gave the signal, and in a flash the girl was nudged forward. A small gravity field lifted her gently and carried her closer to the beast. She screamed once, loud and terrified, but it was quickly swallowed by the wind. The ground beneath her feet was rough and uneven, and she stumbled, rolling onto her knees as she tried to get up. Her heart raced and her tiny hands clawed at the soil. She did not understand what was happening, but instinct told her she was in danger. The beast's eyes narrowed, but she did not attack. She could feel the tension in the air, the silent expectation from the aliens who watched her every move. She had been alone for so long, always surviving, always cautious. She knew the danger this little human represented, not in strength but in her presence. The aliens were testing her, trying to see if she would react with fury, if she would break. But something inside the beast shifted as she looked at the trembling girl. The girl, shaking and scared, finally looked up and saw the enormous creature in front of her. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She had never seen anything so big, so strange, and yet there was no immediate threat. Her fear mixed with fascination. Slowly, she extended a hand, tiny and trembling, hoping somehow to connect. to show that she meant no harm. The exiled beast tilted her massive head, sniffing the air. She could smell fear, yes, but also innocence. There was no trap, no malice here. The girl was simply small, vulnerable, human. For a moment, the beast remembered the times when she had protected others, the warmth she had felt when caring for those who could not defend themselves. Her instincts battled her anger, her pain from exile, and the old hurt that had made her mistrust everything. The girl's tiny voice finally broke the silence. "Hello, I'm not going to hurt you," she said, words barely audible over the wind. The sound was strange, almost musical, and it carried in a way that made the beast pause. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. No one had shown bravery mixed with kindness, and the tone of the human's voice touched something deep within her. The elders watched silently, expecting a sudden eruption of violence. Their plan was simple: provoke the beast, show the girl's insignificance, and use it to strengthen their control over the exiled creature. But their plan began to unravel the moment the beast did not respond with rage. Her massive claws dug into the ground, not to attack but to steady herself as she studied the little girl. Her ears twitched, sensing every movement, every change in the air. The tension was thick, almost unbearable, yet the girl did not run. Minutes passed, though it felt longer. The girl took one careful step forward, then another. She stopped, looked up at the beast, and smiled faintly. It was a tiny, nervous smile, but it was enough. The beast lowered her massive head slightly, sniffing the girl's hair. A soft exhale left her lungs, a sound more like a sigh than a growl. It was the first sign of calm in years. The aliens could not believe what they were seeing. The exiled beast, the creature they had feared above all else, was not attacking. She was watching, curious, almost protective. The elders whispered among themselves, confusion and fear flickering across their faces. This was not how the story was supposed to go. The girl, sensing the shift, took another step. Her hands were still shaking, but she was determined. "I think you're scared too," she said softly. "But maybe we can be friends." The words were simple, childish, and yet in the quiet air of the alien world they carried a weight neither of them could ignore. The beast's massive body relaxed slightly. Her eyes softened, and the scars that had made her seem terrifying for years now seemed to tell a story of survival, endurance, and longing. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel something besides anger and loneliness. She allowed herself to consider the idea that this tiny human, fragile and alone, might not be a threat at all, and so a delicate, silent bond began to form between them. Two beings from completely different worlds brought together by fate and courage. The exiled beast, once feared by all, and the tiny human girl, thrown into danger by the cruelty of others, had found each other. Neither knew what would come next, but in that moment, there was a glimmer of hope. The wind carried the sounds of the alien world around them, but for the first time in years the beast felt that she was not completely alone. The little human girl, trembling but brave, had stepped into her world and in doing so had changed everything. The girl and the exiled beast stood facing each other in the dusty, jagged clearing. The wind swept across the cliffs, rustling rocks and carrying the faint scent of alien plants. The girl's tiny chest rose and fell quickly with every breath. She was scared, yes, but she also felt a strange kind of curiosity, a curiosity that made her step just a little closer, despite the immense size of the creature before her. The beast lowered her massive head, letting her bright, sharp eyes study the little human. Her ears twitched and she could hear the tiny girl's heartbeat, steady and brave despite the fear. She had seen many creatures in her long life, creatures that ran at the first sign of danger, or creatures that attacked without thought. But this small human was different. She did not run. She did not scream in panic. She faced the danger with a mixture of fear and courage that the beast had not seen in years. Slowly, the girl knelt down, placing her hands on the rough, rocky ground. She looked up at the beast and spoke in a soft, careful voice. "I'm not going to hurt you, I just want to be your friend." The words were simple, but they carried more honesty than anything the beast had heard from her own kind in a long time. The exiled beast sniffed the air around the girl. She could smell fear, yes, but also something else, innocence. The little human did not carry the scent of the aliens who had exiled her, the scent of lies or the scent of cruelty. No, this scent was pure. It was strange, and it made her pause. For a moment, the scars that covered her massive body felt lighter. as if the weight of her years of exile and anger had been eased slightly by the presence of this tiny human. The girl slowly reached out her small hand toward the beast. Her fingers shook, but she did not hesitate. "See?" she whispered. "I'm not scared of you. I think you're lonely, like me." The words were barely audible over the wind, yet they reached deep into the heart of the beast. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had ever tried to see her sadness behind the fear she inspired. The beast tilted her head, letting her massive jaw rest close to the girl, careful not to frighten her. She let out a low, soft rumble, not a growl, not a threat, but a sound of thought. She had to understand this creature before her. Was it a trap, a trick, or was it truly a friend, someone who could be trusted? She had learned the hard way that trust was dangerous, but the girl's words, her bravery, and her honesty made something in the beast shift. A spark of curiosity, maybe even hope. The girl slowly crawled closer, placing one hand gently on the beast's front leg. She looked up, her eyes wide and bright. "You don't have to be alone," she said softly. "I don't want to leave you alone here. Not if you don't want me to." Her words were small, but they carried warmth. And for the first time in a long time, the beast felt that warmth. The exiled creature's massive body trembled slightly, not from fear, but from a strange sensation she had not felt in years. It was trust. The girl was showing her trust without knowing it, and in return the beast found herself wanting to protect the tiny human. She lowered her massive head even closer, letting the girl touch her thick, scarred skin. The girl's hand was so small, so fragile that it almost seemed unreal against the beast's rough exterior. And yet, the touch was gentle and the beast could feel the sincerity in it. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours. The girl stayed close, whispering soft words to the creature. She spoke about simple things, the stars, the sunlight, the way the wind felt on her face. She talked about home, about trees, about running through open fields. And the beast listened. She did not understand all the words, but she understood the feeling behind them. She understood care. She understood kindness. And she understood trust. The alien elders watched from afar, their eyes widening in disbelief. Their plan had been simple: throw the girl near the beast, show the power of the exiled creature, and remind everyone of her danger. But their plan had failed. The beast had not attacked. She had not torn the girl apart. Instead, she had allowed the girl to approach her, to touch her, and to speak to her as if nothing was wrong. The elders whispered anxiously among themselves. Something unexpected was happening. A bond was forming, something they had not accounted for. The girl smiled faintly, noticing the change in the beast. "See? You don't have to be angry all the time," she said softly. "You can be kind too." The words were simple, but they carried meaning. They reminded the beast of who she once was, the guardian she had been, the protector of her world. She remembered the warmth of caring for others, the satisfaction of helping those in need, and for a moment, she felt something she had long forgotten: hope. The beast lowered herself to the ground, careful not to scare the girl. She let the tiny human crawl closer, placing her hands on the beast's massive head. The girl giggled softly, a sound that carried across the cliffs like a small, bright spark. It was the first laughter the beast had heard in years, and it made her chest feel tight with emotion. The laughter was not of fear, not of cruelty, but of pure joy, and it reminded the beast that life could still hold moments of happiness, even in exile, as the suns dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the jagged landscape. The girl and the beast remained close. The winds whispered through the cliffs, carrying their quiet connection across the barren land. The girl's small hand stayed on the beast's head, and the beast's massive eyes watched over the tiny human like a guardian once again. In that moment, the two of them understood each other in a way that words could not explain. The girl had found courage beyond her years, and the beast had found trust beyond her pain. Together they formed a fragile but unbreakable bond, the kind of bond that could change both their lives forever. And far above, the aliens continued to watch, unsure of what to do next. Their plan had failed, and now they faced a new problem. A creature they had feared for years was not only alive, but forming a connection with the one being they believed was helpless. The elders knew that what was happening could change everything, not just for the girl and the beast, but for all of them. The exiled creature shifted slightly, letting the girl rest against her massive body. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of peace. She was not alone. And the girl, small and brave, had shown her that even in the harshest worlds, kindness could survive. The sun finally sank below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Shadows stretched across the rocks, but the girl and the beast remained together, two unlikely companions finding comfort in each other. And in the quiet, the first real trust had been formed. Trust that would soon be tested, challenged, and strengthened in ways neither of them could yet imagine. The wind had grown colder as night approached on the barren alien world. The suns had set, leaving behind a sky filled with stars that seemed sharper and brighter than anything the girl had ever seen on Earth. Shadows stretched across the jagged rocks and cliffs, and the alien landscape seemed even more otherworldly in the dim light. The girl and the exiled beast remained close, their bond growing stronger with every passing moment. But the real test of trust was about to begin. The little human had been moving slowly, talking softly to the beast as she explored the rocky terrain. She ran her small fingers along the rough, scarred skin of the creature, giggling when she felt the bumps and ridges beneath her hands. The beast allowed it, her massive body shifting carefully to accommodate the tiny human. She had never felt this kind of closeness before. In her long years of exile, no one had dared to approach her. Now the girl was not only approaching, she was touching her, speaking to her, and moving freely in her presence. Far above, the alien elders were growing impatient. Their eyes, sharp and calculating, watched the scene unfold through their long-range observation devices. They had expected the beast to attack to show the humans their rightful fear, but nothing had happened. The girl and the exiled creature were forming a bond, a connection that the aliens could not understand. Frustration and disbelief filled their minds. They had underestimated the power of innocence and kindness, and now they needed to find a way to regain control. "Send a warning," one elder said. "Show the girl the consequences of her foolishness. She must learn that some beings are not to be trusted." The others nodded, agreeing. They activated a series of holographic traps along the cliffs, creating lights and sounds meant to frighten both the girl and the beast. Their plan was simple: scare the girl into running, provoke the beast into defending her territory, and remind everyone that the exiled creature was still dangerous. The girl noticed the flickering lights first. Her eyes widened and she took a small step back. "It's okay," she whispered to the beast, her voice trembling slightly but full of courage. "Don't worry, we can handle this together." The beast's ears twitched and she let out a low rumble of acknowledgement. She could feel the fear in the girl, but she could also feel the determination. The tiny human was not panicking. She was facing the danger with a bravery that surprised the beast. The first holographic projection appeared, a massive shadow of a predator, roaring loudly and moving across the rocks toward them. The girl's eyes widened, but she did not scream. Instead, she held the beast's thick, scaly paw with her tiny hands and whispered, "It's not real. It's just a trick. We're okay." The beast's body tensed, muscles coiling like springs ready to strike, but the girl's calm voice made her hesitate. She had to decide whether to trust this tiny human completely or let instinct take over. The shadows multiplied, flickering across the rocks in unnatural ways, and the sounds of growls and roars filled the air. The aliens were trying everything to provoke the beast. They wanted her to attack, to show that fear was still justified, but the beast stood her ground, her massive form looming over the girl protectively. She realized something important. The girl was not alone in this. The beast could protect her just as she had once protected others. The girl, sensing the tension, began to move carefully. She stepped toward one of the holographic projections, her small hands reaching out as if trying to touch it. "It's okay," she whispered again. "You can't hurt us." Her words were simple, but they carried courage and trust. The beast watched, amazed. No one had ever dared to approach danger this way. The girl's bravery was contagious, and slowly the beast felt her own fear and anger melt away. The holographic predators grew louder, their roars echoing across the cliffs. But the girl remained calm. She spoke softly to the beast, describing what she saw and guiding her through the illusions. "See, it's just a light," she said. "It can't touch us. We're together and we're safe." The beast followed her lead, stepping lightly and carefully, avoiding the projections without striking. She realized that the girl's presence was changing her, reminding her of her own strength and control. For hours, the two moved together through the traps, the girl pointing out dangers, the beast responding with careful precision. They began to form a rhythm, a silent communication that did not require words. The girl's bravery and kindness encouraged the beast, and in return, the beast's protective instincts gave the girl confidence. Together, they were learning to trust each other completely. The alien elders watched in disbelief. Their carefully planned test had backfired. The girl was not frightened. The beast was not aggressive. Instead, they were working together, showing a bond that the aliens could neither understand nor control. Panic and frustration spread among the elders. They realized that fear alone could not dictate the future of this creature. Something else was at work, something stronger, something they could not manipulate. As the night deepened, the girl and the beast finally paused on a high cliff, overlooking the jagged valleys below. The stars shimmered above them, casting faint light across the rocky terrain. The girl leaned against the beast's massive side, exhausted but happy. "We did it," she whispered. "We faced it together." The beast lowered her massive head, letting the girl rest against her thick neck. She let out a soft rumble, a sound of contentment and understanding. For the first time in years, the exiled beast felt a sense of peace. She realized that the tiny human had done something no one else could. She had shown her trust, bravery, and kindness. The girl had faced fear and danger without running or screaming, and in doing so, she had formed a connection that was unbreakable. The beast had learned that she did not have to be alone, that trust and friendship could exist even in a world filled with fear. The alien elders, meanwhile, began to retreat. They had no choice but to acknowledge what was happening. Their plan had failed. The exiled creature was not a mindless monster, and the girl was not helpless. Together, they had turned the test of trust into a demonstration of courage, compassion, and understanding. The elders realized that fear could no longer control this story. As the night continued, the girl and the beast stayed close, sharing the quiet moments of the alien world. The girl whispered stories about her home, about fields and trees and sunlight, and the beast listened, absorbing the warmth and hope in her voice. The stars shone brightly above them, and for the first time the exiled creature felt that there was a future she could face with someone by her side. Trust had been tested and passed. Fear had been challenged and overcome, and in the quiet of the alien night, a bond was formed that would guide them through the dangers yet to come. Together, the girl and the beast had begun a journey that neither of them could have imagined, a journey that would change their lives forever. The alien settlements were buzzing with whispers and tension. News of the exiled beast and the tiny human girl had spread quickly across the colonies. Every eye seemed to turn toward the jagged cliffs where the two unlikely companions had faced the aliens' traps and emerged unharmed. No one could understand what had happened. How could a tiny, fragile human survive in the presence of the creature that had been feared for generations? And why had the beast, feared and hated by all, not only spared the girl but seemed to protect her? The elders were furious. Their carefully crafted plan had backfired completely. The test had been designed to prove the beast's danger, to remind everyone of her exile and the reason she was cast out. But instead, the girl and the beast had shown something the aliens had not anticipated: courage, compassion, and trust. The elders gathered in their high towers, discussing urgently what to do next. Their fear was clear. The story of the beast was changing, and with it, the perception of the entire alien society. Meanwhile, on the cliffs, the girl and the beast moved carefully through the rocky terrain. The wind had shifted, carrying strange scents and the faint echoes of distant creatures. The girl had grown bolder, her tiny hands brushing along the ridges and scars of the beast's massive body as they navigated the landscape together. She felt safer with the creature by her side than she had felt anywhere else, and the beast in turn felt a sense of purpose she had not known in years. Protecting this small human awakened feelings she had buried long ago: responsibility, care, and a strange warmth that softened her loneliness. The girl looked up at the beast, her eyes bright. "I think they're all scared of you," she said softly. "But you're not just a monster, you're kind. You're like a guardian." The beast lowered her massive head, letting her eyes meet the girl's. She could not speak in the human way, but the deep rumble from her chest carried a sense of agreement, a promise of protection. The girl's words reminded her of who she had once been before exile, and for a moment she allowed herself to feel hope. As they moved closer to the edge of the cliffs, the alien observers tried again to intervene. This time, they sent robotic scouts and drones aiming to intimidate or harm the girl and provoke the beast. The machines moved swiftly, their lights cutting through the darkness, their mechanical whirring and clanging filling the air. The girl froze for a moment, fear flashing in her eyes, but then she gripped the beast's massive leg tightly and whispered, "It's okay. Don't let them scare us. We're together." The beast's muscles tensed, her massive body ready to act. With a single movement, she positioned herself between the girl and the approaching machines. Her claws scraped the rocks, sending sparks into the night. The drones hesitated, scanning her enormous frame, realizing too late that this was no ordinary creature. With careful precision, she used her massive size and strength to knock the smaller machines aside, leaving them broken and harmless. The girl clapped her hands softly, delighted, and the beast let out a low, proud rumble. Watching from afar, the aliens began to murmur in confusion and fear. Their mechanical tools and traps had failed. The girl, small and fragile, had not panicked. The beast, feared by all, had not destroyed recklessly. Together they had overcome every challenge placed before them. The elders began to question their assumptions. Maybe fear alone had never been enough to control this creature. Maybe, just maybe, trust and courage were stronger than anyone had imagined. The girl led the beast carefully toward a small canyon, speaking softly to her companion the entire way. She described the shapes of the rocks, the way the wind moved, and the strange glow of the alien plants. She pointed to safe paths, avoided loose stones, and encouraged the beast to move gently. In return, the beast guided her, nudging her out of danger with massive paws and alerting her to hidden cliffs or treacherous drops. Together they formed a rhythm, a silent teamwork that spoke louder than words. Hours passed, and the night deepened. The girl began to feel more comfortable in the beast's presence. She climbed onto her back carefully, holding onto her ridged scales and laughing softly as the beast moved. The wind carried her laughter across the cliffs, a sound so pure and innocent that even the harsh landscape seemed to soften around them. The beast allowed it, feeling a strange joy in the human's company. She had survived alone for so long, but now she was not alone anymore. She had someone who trusted her completely, someone who had shown her kindness without fear. The alien elders watching from their towers began to realize something crucial. The story of the exiled beast was no longer about fear or danger. It was about connection, courage, and understanding. The girl, with her small size and fearless heart, had bridged the gap between species, showing that even a creature feared by all could be capable of love and protection. The elders whispered among themselves, knowing that their control over the narrative had slipped. They could no longer define the beast solely by her past or by her fearsome appearance. As the first light of dawn began to creep across the alien horizon, the girl and the beast paused on a high ridge overlooking the valleys below. The stars faded slowly, replaced by the pale glow of the rising suns. The girl hugged the beast's massive neck gently, her tiny hands resting on the rough, scarred skin. "We did it," she whispered. "We made it through the night." The beast's eyes softened, and she let out a low, approving rumble. In that moment, she felt the bond between them grow stronger, a connection forged through trust, courage, and compassion. The alien colonies slowly began to respond. Soldiers and observers who had once whispered fearfully about the exiled creature now watched in awe. Reports came in from other settlements describing what they had seen. The girl, small and fragile, walking and even playing safely with the beast. The stories spread quickly, challenging the old fears and legends that had kept the beast in exile. People began to question the narratives they had been told for generations. The girl and the beast spent the day exploring the cliffs together, moving carefully but freely. The girl told stories of her home, of trees and rivers and sunlight, and the beast listened in a way she had never done before. She did not understand the words entirely, but she understood the meaning, the warmth, the kindness, the hope. And in the presence of this small, brave human, she began to believe that there might be a future where she was not alone, where she could be more than just a feared, exiled creature. As evening approached, the two of them settled near a small rock ledge overlooking a valley. The girl leaned against the beast's thick side, exhausted but happy. The beast lowered her massive head, letting the tiny human rest against her. They watched the alien sun set together, a strange pair from two different worlds united by trust, bravery, and the quiet understanding that had grown between them. The aliens had no choice but to acknowledge what they had witnessed. Fear alone could no longer dictate how the beast was seen. Courage and kindness had rewritten the story. And in that moment, a fragile, growing hope emerged. Hope that the exiled beast could find acceptance, and that the small human who had faced danger without fear could change the hearts of an entire society. The alien world was quiet now, but it was a quiet filled with change. News of the little human girl and the exiled beast had spread to every corner of the colonies. Stories that had once inspired fear now inspired awe. For years, the exiled creature had been a symbol of terror, a reminder of what could happen when power was misused or misunderstood. But now she was becoming something else, a symbol of trust, courage, and unexpected friendship. The girl and the beast had spent the night together on the cliffs, and the first light of dawn painted the jagged rocks in warm shades of orange and pink. The little human's eyes sparkled with wonder as she looked at the landscape, pointing out shapes in the rocks and patterns in the alien plants that the beast had never noticed. The creature, massive and scarred, moved carefully beside her, alert but calm. She had learned to trust the girl completely, and in return the girl had shown her what it meant to be seen as more than just a monster. The alien elders had convened again, this time in a mix of fear and curiosity. They could not deny what they had seen. Their carefully laid plans to control or intimidate the exiled beast had failed. The little human had survived where no adult had dared to step, and the beast had not attacked. Instead, they had formed a bond, moving through the dangers of the night with teamwork, courage, and trust. Slowly, the elders realized that fear could no longer define this creature. Something else, something stronger, was at work. As the girl and the beast explored the cliffs, they noticed smaller creatures emerging from the rocks. Normally, these creatures would scatter at the first sign of the beast, but now they hesitated, curious and cautious. The girl crouched, speaking softly to them, her voice gentle and welcoming. The beast followed, her massive form looming but non-threatening. The two of them together created a new energy, one that even the smaller inhabitants of the planet could sense. The world itself seemed to respond to the trust that had grown between them. The girl laughed softly as she climbed onto the beast's back, holding onto the ridges and folds of her thick skin. "See?" she said, pointing toward the valley below. "We're safe here. Nothing can hurt us together." The beast rumbled low in her chest, a sound of agreement, of pride, and of protection. She had spent so long alone, fearing every movement, every sound, every shadow. Now she realized that companionship could bring a strength she had never felt before. The little human had taught her that courage was not just about fighting. It was about trust, kindness, and facing fear together. From the alien colonies, whispers turned into conversations, and conversations turned into action. Soldiers, scientists, and observers who had once regarded the exiled beast with fear were now beginning to see her differently. The little human had changed everything. By showing bravery, innocence, and kindness, she had rewritten the story of the creature who had been cast out. The elders knew that the narrative of fear no longer applied. A new story was forming, a story of courage, compassion, and hope. The girl guided the beast to a quiet canyon where the sunlight broke through in narrow streams. She pointed out small dangers, loose rocks, sharp edges, hidden holes, and the beast followed her lead. It was a simple act, but it showed the strength of their partnership. The girl learned to read the beast's subtle movements, the twitch of an ear, the shift of a paw, the flicker of an eye, and the beast, in turn, learned to anticipate the girl's needs, moving with care and precision. Together they were unstoppable, not because of strength, but because of trust. As the day progressed, a small group of aliens ventured closer, cautiously observing from a distance. They watched as the girl and the beast played together, laughed together, and moved in harmony. Slowly, fear began to give way to wonder. One alien, braver than the others, took a tentative step closer, testing the boundaries. The girl looked up, smiled gently, and waved. The beast lowered her massive head, letting the alien see that there was no danger. The message was clear. Trust could exist even where fear had ruled for generations. The elders observed this interaction, realizing that they had underestimated the power of compassion and courage. The exiled beast was not a mindless threat. She was a being capable of deep connection and care. The little human, small and fragile, had done what no adult or soldier could do. She had broken through the barriers of fear and misunderstanding. The elders began to consider that perhaps exile had never been the solution. Perhaps the beast deserved more than punishment. Perhaps she deserved a chance to be seen for who she truly was. As evening approached, the girl and the beast returned to the cliffs where they had spent the night. The suns dipped low, painting the sky in soft purples and golds. The girl leaned against the beast's thick side, her small hands resting on the ridges of her massive body. "We did it," she whispered. "We changed everything." The beast's rumble responded, deep and steady, a sound that carried strength, approval, and a hint of relief. Together they had faced fear, danger, and doubt, and they had emerged stronger. That night, under the twin moons of the alien world, the girl and the beast lay close together, watching the stars twinkle above. The girl told stories of Earth, of green fields and rivers and sunlight. The beast listened, absorbing the warmth and hope in her words. Though she could not speak in the human language, her presence, her gentle movements, and the protective rumble in her chest communicated everything she could not say. A bond had been formed that could not be broken, a bond that would guide them through the challenges yet to come. The alien colonies slowly began to accept what they had witnessed. Fear was no longer the first reaction. Curiosity, awe, and a cautious respect began to replace it. The little human had shown them that courage and kindness could reshape perceptions, and the exiled beast had shown that even those who had been misunderstood and punished could still choose trust and protection over anger and revenge. The girl and the beast had become more than companions. They had become symbols of hope, bravery, and the power of connection across worlds. In the quiet of the alien night, they had rewritten the story of fear into a story of trust, compassion, and redemption. And as the stars shone brightly above them, both knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, side by side, forever changed by the bond they had formed.